Okay, the last section on death and earth. I'm not going to torment you by reading most of them because you got to hear them in the actual assignment. Those were downloaded for you. I just want to talk to you a little bit about them. Emily Dickinson's Because I Could Not Stop for Death is a wonderful example of personification. She is giving human characteristics to death, and as though death has come to get her, because she was so busy with her life, she didn't even notice that her life had passed her by. And the first time that she takes time to slow down is when she's in the carriage heading out of town, which is actually the hearse, the horse-drawn wagon or whatever that would have carried her body outside of town to where the cemetery was. And so she sees all of the things. She finally takes time to see all of the things passing by. And so she kind of gets to the place at the cemetery where she sees herself and her life having passed by. And that's when she first realizes that she's died, because she just got in such a hurry with her life and passed herself by, kind of. Dylan Thomas's Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night is a tribute to his father. It was written for him. It's a beautiful piece, very melodic, musical. I forgot to mention a little bit about Emily Dickinson. Let me back up to her just a second. She was an unusual character. She was kind of obsessed with death. She had kind of an unrequited love for a married minister. She sent some of her works to another gentleman that she highly respected, and he read her works and he told her that though they were good, he wouldn't recommend that she publish. And Emily Dickinson didn't publish her works, as a matter of fact. She retreated to her room. She was kind of a social phobic, dressed all in white. Never really spoke to hardly anyone. She only had a circle of about 10 friends or so that she had any kind of a closeness to. After she died, they went in and they found literally thousands of poems all over the place, written on all kinds of things. Took them a long time to kind of sort through and edit and work with the poems. Very interesting life for her. Let me get back to Dylan Thomas, who was a very interesting character too. He was a combination of that outwardly bold, mouthy, bragging kind of guy, full of bravado, but inside he was like a frightened kind of child who was very insecure and sickly as a young child, and he was a contradiction in that respect. Truman Capote once said that he would end up destroying himself, and he did, essentially. He died at 33 of alcoholism. But he would go down to the local pubs and clubs and such and just read his poetry with profound strength and everything. And so he was quite a character. As a matter of fact, he said there were a couple of things that he wanted to do in his life. One was touch the boobs of a famous actress, and secondly, he wanted to meet Charlie Chaplin. And he lucked out and got to do both. Charlie Chaplin was having a party, so he was invited. And Shelley Winters, a young actress at the time, afforded him his first wish, and he got to touch her boobs. And he was so drunk and making such a scene that Charlie Chaplin actually came over and told him, you're kind of being rude and everything. And so Dylan Thomas promptly went over and peed in one of Charlie Chaplin's plants. So that is the kind of person he was. An amazing poet with a gift. He wrote at an early age. He was obsessed with the sound that words made, not necessarily what words meant, but the sounds that they made, they fascinated him, and so he was very focused on the way poetry sounded. But he was a very fascinating person, very self-destructive person there, though. Interesting piece, though. Beautiful piece as a tribute. And he's essentially saying the way other people have fought, the way good men have fought to be right, the way that brave men have fought to be brave, humble men have fought, have been humble. All of the ways, and they fight against dying, and they fight it every step of the way. And that's what he's telling him to do. He said, fight with every bit that's in you. Fight and rage against the dying of the light. The next one, John Donne's Death Be Not Proud, I think is one of the only ones that you didn't get to hear. Death Be Not Proud is another example of personification. He's speaking directly to death, and he's essentially telling death, why are you so proud of yourself? Look at who you hang out with. You hang out with pestilence and poison and all kinds of things like that, and you're really not that impressive. He says, you're actually the subject to fate. People can take death into their own hands and use it for their will. Even drugs that bring about a better death than regular death. And so he's really trying to take the power and control away from death and say, you know what? You may get us in the end. It's true that everybody's going to die. But we only die once. And after that, we have an eternity. And at that point, when we can no longer die, you are the one that will die. You lose all of your power once we make that one short sleep. And so he's challenging death in that respect. In terms of the earth section, Samuel Charters' Hopi Corn at Walpi Mesa. I chose that one for one specific reason, because if you'll look at the front of your textbook, the people who put your textbook together are Anne and Samuel Charters, and this is one of his poems. And it essentially talks about, the Hopi Indians have survived in desert areas for, an eternity of time. And the amount of work that they put in to survive, to allow for corn to grow, to mound up the earth and protect it from the wind and the sun and bring water to it and everything, is such a major effort. And what he's saying is, all the trouble that they went to do that, I wouldn't have gone to that much trouble, and my corn would not have survived because I never would have put that much work into it. And I think that's what is kind of a metaphor for our society for a lot of people, is if it's that much work, they're not going to bother with doing it. I'm going to try to find the easy way out. A side note on that one, too, is that corn is one of the hardest grains to process. It takes a whole lot of energy for the body to process corn, and it doesn't get a lot back out of it. And so it also saps so much of the nutrients from the soil. That's why farmers have to rotate crops out, because corn and cotton both sap large amounts of nutrients from the soil. So it takes tons of water for corn to grow too. So corn is a very high maintenance plant that doesn't give us all the time a lot of the positive results that we want, which makes it all the more interesting to have to put so much effort into something for what you get back out of it. But if you're willing to put so much effort into something, the reward is there. And I think that's what he's kind of saying about that. William Blake's The Lamb and the Tiger, a lot of people love these. The Lamb sounds a whole lot like a children's nursery song. I can imagine people singing that to their baby as a good night song. And it's simply talking about how he can be talking about what a real lamb, a little sheepy, who made you little sheepy, who gave you your pretty woolly clothes. It could be talking about a little baby who made you little baby. And also, lamb refers to the Lamb of God. Christ is considered the Lamb of God, and he's considered our shepherd, and we are his flock. And so all of these different images come to fore in the poem itself. Who made you? Well, God made Christ, God made the Lamb, God made the little child. So we have all of those images there going together. And in contrast to that, we have the tiger. The tiger is so not gentle. The first poem is so gentle and soft. The tiger is aggressive and twisting metal and pounding and heat and sinew and bone and teeth and all of that. And the question is, God made the little lamb. Did God also make the tiger who preys upon the lamb? And that is metaphorical for Satan. Lucifer originally was one of God's angels, who was one of his major angels up there with him. And when Lucifer turned on God, he and some of his followers and minions were sent down to hell, separated from God. So even that which is evil originated from God, but given free will, choices are made. And so it makes that comparison of God has created both the gentle tiger and the lamb, and also gentle lamb, and also the dangerous tiger. And so we have that metaphor for good and bad and all that. And finally, the road not taken. Just about everybody has encountered this one. And a beautiful poem in terms of making the decisions in a person's life. What decision you make is going to have ramifications down the road. One of the most interesting images I see in it is he looks down the path as far as he can see until he can't see any further. And that's what we try to do when we make good decisions. We try to see down as far as we can where this decision is going to take us. And then we can't see any farther what the ramifications are, but we have to live with them nonetheless. And he makes that comment that, maybe he'll get back one day and see where the other path follows. But in reality, we all know that once a decision's made, we can't go back and change that decision. We have to deal with life and as it comes. But it's a wonderful poem nonetheless, and a favorite of many people. So that concludes the Death and Earth section for us, and concludes the entire poetry section.